So in this video, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the differences between B cells and T cells. So I'll just go ahead and make a chart so I can thoroughly talk about each different type of cell and compare and contrast. Both B cells and T cells are made within the bone marrow, and so there's this process called hematopoiesis, in which we have what is called a hematopoietic stem cell that differentiates and it creates all the different types of blood cells. Once the blood cells are created, then they undergo a process of maturation. So B cells and T cells undergo a process of maturation, which is essentially a process of screening out which of these are going to respond to self and which are going to be good clones that do not respond to self and therefore can be stored in case they need some sort of or have some sort of immune function in the future if something foreign comes into the body. So the location for maturation of a B cell occurs in the bone marrow, and maturation in T cells occurs in the thymus. And this is where the B and the T come from in the different names of the cells, is where their maturation occurs. After maturation, then they are going to migrate to the lymph nodes, and the B cells stay sort of on the outside of the lymph node, and the T cells are interior or on the inside of the lymph nodes. All right, now they both respond to antigen. B cells have a receptor, so the B cell receptor, also known as immunoglobulin. And if you watched my function of the antibodies video, I talk a little bit more about that as well, is immunoglobulin. And the T cell receptor, it doesn't have a special name, it's just called a T cell receptor. The B cell receptor, immunoglobulin, can respond directly to antigen draining into the lymph node. So responds or can bind directly to antigen that has drained into the lymph node. Whereas a T cell receptor must undergo a process called antigen presentation. So, oops, I kind of got cut off there, but you know what I mean. So antigen presentation, which means that it responds to both antigen and the major histocompatibility complex, the MHC, of an antigen presenting cell. And some examples of antigen-presenting cells are B cells, dendritic cells, I think macrophages, right? So essentially anything that's going to process antigen and bring it, and it puts it on this little platter and says, look here, I found some antigen. And it's sort of a protective mechanism that your T cells will only respond if it's being presented by you. Okay, so it recognizes both you and the antigen. Now, once B cells are selected for, so that's the process of clonal selection when an antigen binds to the receptor or the immunoglobulin, they start to make copies of themselves, and these copies are called plasma cells. And it also makes memory cells. And the plasma cells' function is to pump out antibody, which is essentially the immunoglobulin or the B cell receptor just not stuck into the membrane. And so it pumps out the antibody and it goes to the site of infection and confers what we call humoral, I'm running out of room here, humoral immunity. All right, and if you want to know a little bit more about that, watch the functions of the antibody video. You can see what it does after that. Now, if the T cell receptor is clonally selected for by having an antigen-presenting cell present antigen, and it also recognizes the major histocompatibility complex, it will start to make copies of itself, and it forms T helper and cytotoxic T cells, as well as memory cells. Right, so there's always going to be a little bit of memory every time a clone is selected for. And so what these types of cells do, T helpers, they are engaged in like sort of chemical signaling. They sort of stimulate B cells, they stimulate other T cells, they start pumping out different sort of cytokines and chemokines that just sort of get things going. And then the cytotoxic T cells, these are killer cells. So they actually go off and they kill both foreign and self-infected cells, right? So they can go to a cell that has a virus in it and say, die, you've got something bad in you, don't pass along this virus. But they can also go ahead and kill foreign bacterial cells and things like that. This is called cell-mediated immunity versus humoral immunity. So just keep in mind that B cells, they stay always in the lymph nodes and they pump antibody out after they've been selected, and they undergo a process called humoral immunity, or all the functions of the antibody. Whereas a T cell receptor, when it is triggered, then it makes copies of its cells, and those cells actually go out and are actively participating in, the battle of against the infection. All right. So this gives you the difference, comprehensive list of all the differences between B cells and T cells and their function in the immune system.